Welcome to your 20-minute podcast with David Brower, where we do our best to give you useful information in 20 minutes or less. Now, here's your host, five-time Voice Arts Awards nominee, David Brower.
Thanks, Alan. This is David Brower with your 20-minute podcast. Our special guests today from Los Angeles, California, are Alan and Talia Wagner. They are marriage and family therapists. They've got a new book out, and they've been doing this for a while. Welcome, folks. Glad to have you on the show today.
Thank you so much for having us.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So I'm going to ask just a really stupid question. So did you guys meet in therapy or?
No, we actually met in grad school, studying to be therapists. So.
I tried to keep it straight-faced, but it just didn't work. So how long have you been marriage and family therapists, you guys?
I think we've been marriage and family therapists. I know for me, it's been about 17 years.
Okay.
I'd say like 15, 16 years. Yeah.
Nice. So you started individually before you met, I assume. Is that fair?
No, we actually met in graduate school while we were studying to be therapists. But, along the way, we've developed our own separate practices, but then we sort of merged forces later as we kind of came up with our own theory on relationships. And that became our focal point.
How cool.
I think that also it came together for us when we got married and became parents, and that the same struggle that we were seeing with our clients, we were living. So
there you go. Yeah,
that informed it a lot.
Absolutely. And so you are products of Pepperdine University. Did I read that right?
Yes, that's correct.
Cool.
That's correct.
What's the mascot?
The Waves.
See, there you go. You had to think about it, didn't you?
Yeah. No. Well, it's funny. You always kind of remember your undergraduate. And then I think for graduate school, it was just so much more academically focused that I didn't really pay as much attention to the school spirit aspect of things.
I don't blame you at all.
I think graduate school is a little bit different because you're not on campus every day. Maybe you go twice a week.
Yeah.
So the scope is a little bit different.
Absolutely.
And you're older, so there isn't the same kind of environment as when you're an undergraduate.
Well, yeah, you're studying for a real job instead of the rah-rah, right?
Right.
So you folks work on individual counseling, couples marriage counseling, premarital, anxiety, depression, anger management, coaching, professional. You got a lot of stuff going on there besides just, not to minimize it, but besides just marriage and family therapy, right?
Well, a lot of those things actually go hand in hand. So it's very likely that when you are married and struggling with many things, you also have your own individual stuff going on.
Sure.
A lot of the time there is depression and anxiety. So it may seem like they're completely separate, but many times they go hand in hand.
They kind of bleed over, for lack of a better term, right? They kind of, one bleeds over to the other or to multiple things.
They do.
Well, I think in our couples counseling, and I would say, I'll speak for myself, about 85% of my practice is couples, and the other 15% are individuals that are working on relationships.
Okay.
So there is a general theme, even though it may seem like it's individual therapy, it tends to be focused more on relationships. And a lot of the stuff that we do in couples counseling, like Talia was saying, is there's, when couples are having conflicts and things like that, there is always going to be an anger management component because when people are dysregulated trying to express their feelings, it's virtually impossible and usually counterproductive.
Isn't that the truth? I remember when my wife and I took a premarital class 17 and a half years ago, probably. And one of the things that I always remembered out of that class was to never use the word you because it's so accusatory and patronizing and demeaning and all those kinds of things. And so I'm sure you've heard that, used that, said that, whatever, but I don't know why, but it's always been on the top of my mind for many, many years.
It's true. When you look at it from a you perspective, you are looking at kind of what the other person creates in you.
Right.
There is a blaming element to it. Whether you mean it or not, there is a difference between our intention and what happens as far as the outcome.
Boy, intention is the key, isn't it?
Oh, yeah.
It's interesting that you held on to that. But I think in that statement, you're sort of setting a narrative that there's a victim and then there's somebody who's victimizing.
Right.
And it really goes well if there's not a place of empathy for both sides.
But I would also say that it's such a difficult thing to merge two lives together in the sense that you are now a team with two different people who were individuals before and now have to function like a team. And we don't always take that into consideration when we get married and have kids.
With ours, we both had 4 kids when we got together, so hers, mine, and that's plenty. Thank you. And so what we found that we continue to be polar opposites in so many ways. But yeah, and by that I mean like she's very active. She'll get up at 5:30 in the morning and go swim 2,500 yards because she wants to. And I'll go out and ride my Harley across 13 states because I want to, So, I mean, there's a lot of similarities, but there's a lot of things that aren't. And what we found early on was we had the same servant's heart, if you will. And so that kind of grounded us in a lot of ways that maybe hadn't before.
And I think that's something to really consider, right? Because you're not going to be the same in everything. You're not going to see things the same. You're not going to interpret your world the same. And we have to accept some of those differences, but still hone in on the similarities and the things we have in common.
And I think a lot of times too, people, when they're looking, and this brings up the premarital counseling thing that you're talking about. Mm-hmm. In the very beginning, when you're building a life together and you're going into what we consider to be the 3 acts of life, with the second act being the marriage, the house, the kids, and the career trajectory that is spiking at that point, mm-hmm. It's a very overwhelming time. And when couples are building their relationships on just commonalities of, we just like sushi, we love Game of Thrones, and things of that nature, that's not enough. She wants to, exercise early. She can find another friend to do that with. It doesn't always have to be you.
Yeah.
But the core things between the two of you that you build a foundation on, that's what's really important.
Absolutely. And the other thing we found too is to do the best we can on any given day to respect and encourage each other. Where I would go swimming with her or not is a totally different conversation, but to encourage her to do those things that makes her a better person, and likewise her for me, and realizing that, yep. You're not going to fix me, so you just as well support me.
Well, I mean, I'm glad that, when you mentioned the Harley and driving across 13 states, you get to be you.
Yeah.
I think that's a great thing.
Yeah.
Glad that she accepts that too. And she may not be the kind of person who wants to be on the back of the Harley with you or riding a different Harley next to you, but she's not inhibiting who you are. And I think that's great.
Absolutely right. So you got a new book, just came out in March, if I remember correctly, Roommates. Are you married but living like roommates? Do you sleep back to back or even separately? Do you feel lonely, bored, sexually unfulfilled in your marriage? Fascinating topic and subject. I mean, it's something that you kind of hear people mumble under their breaths a little bit, but it's not something that's, I think, in open, common, everyday conversations. Is that a fair statement?
The reason that we wrote Married Roommates is because of the high frequency in which we saw couples who were struggling with that, mm-hmm. where the commonalities become the house, the kids, the jobs, the bills, and the romantic relationship has nothing to sustain it anymore.
Right.
People don't go out with one another. They don't make time for their relationship. And that has a lot of issues that formulate down the road as a result of that.
Date nights are really important.
Oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Right?
Oh, yeah. And maybe not even calling it date night, but just time together.
Yeah. No.
What I was going to, I don't cut you guys off, but what I was going to say is that I think to your point, when you said you don't hear a lot about that, like under their breath, people mention things. We know, I mean, whether it's our personal lives or professional lives, how many people are struggling with this quietly because right. Nobody wants to admit, that there's problems in their marriage. And so in many cases, there is no infidelity. There's no major trust issue. It's just boredom. It's a disconnect. And they just feel like they're just logistical roommates. And they look at social media and the way that that's promoting relationships, and they feel there's something wrong with them or that they're alone in that. And the reality is, I hope that this book, and we've seen the feedback in the emails that we're getting and all of the comments that we get, that there's a large audience of people that really feel this way, and they just didn't know that other people did.
Wow. One of the world's best kept relational secrets, I guess.
Well, I just wish people were, I think social media has led to a lack of inauthenticity where everybody projects their best self and the self they wish they were.
Well said.
And so, people don't really have that opportunity, sadly, to just openly discuss it, because if everybody did, then everybody would learn. I mean, these are fixable things. These are things that most couples can get back on track within a few weeks if they really acknowledge the problem and they felt open enough to talk about it. But I do know that that's a hard thing for people to talk about.
Well,
right, but when you look on your social media and all your friends seem like their relationship is going so well, do you feel comfortable sharing your own stuff?
Well, of course not.
Right. So we feel alone in that.
Yeah, yeah. Unless you, with that said, certainly not on social media, but we have some close friends, close couples, Bible study group, whatever the situation where you do have some opportunity to do that. But like you say, the key is authenticity, integrity, and communication between the two people involved. That's where the rubber hits the road, right?
Yeah, well, I mean, look, as a parent that, you can hear all the stories about how much everybody loves parenthood all the time, but that as much as you don't regret parenthood, as much as you love your kids, that it's not always easy.
Right.
And, it's not easy on a couple. It's not easy on an individual. And, all of the different obligations that kind of hit people smack in the face in a predictable way, but in some ways it seems unpredictable. It leaves them stuck and they just sort of survive. And thankfully for them, in their minds, they have binge watching of television that can fill the hours until they go to bed.
I think one of the things I see periodically, and you probably see this certainly a lot more than I do, but when couples are rapidly approaching, or in their mind rapidly approaching, it might be 3 or 4 years away, but rapidly approaching the empty nest, there's a look of, I don't know if it's being scared, if it's freedom, if it's, oh my God, I don't know what it is, but those few words certainly shock a lot of people when they're not ready for it.
That is something that we also address in the book, because if you didn't make a point of working on your relationship and it became about the kids, when they leave, many couples then face the reality that they don't have much of a relationship left. And the rate of divorce in that group of empty nesters is sadly huge.
Oh, wow.
People just don't understand that they have to invest in it so that it's there for them when their kids leave.
Yeah. I mean, you haven't worked all these years and raised a family and a house and a career and all that kind of stuff just to sit back on the recliner and, hey, honey, would you bring me a cup of coffee? No, that ain't going to happen,
Yeah.
What we talk about in the book is that time could actually be the best time in your life, but it could also be the worst time in your life based on the decisions you made.
Give me a couple of examples.
So if you kept that relationship, the fire in the relationship burning, once your kids leave, you're essentially free to go travel, to go do whatever it is that you want. You would have saved...
Ride a Harley across 13
Right.
That's my man right there.
Exactly. So you can, that's the time where you could fulfill all those dreams you had, all the bucket lists. Or you realize the kids leave, there's a great deal of sadness, there's an inability to connect, and at best, you remain two people living in a house, living parallel lives side by side.
Yeah.
At worst, you're just two really, really unhappy people that don't know where to go from there.
Well, that breaks your heart, doesn't it?
Yeah. It's unfortunate. And, the time to fix that is not then, it's before.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I mean, when we get to do premarital counseling with people, that is such an exciting time. I know for myself, and I'm sure Talia would agree, that this is our opportunity to give them all of the things that are going to be coming up ahead.
Yeah.
To get the pattern in place, to get the habits in place. Because if couples do invest the time into their relationship, even through the process of family and homeownership and career, then anything can happen after the kids are gone. Like she said, there are times where some couples are just looking so forward to the time when their kids go away to college because they can finally do the trips they've never gotten to do. Right. And then there's those other couples that they don't even know what to do. They almost just use the kids as a buffer for years to avoid between them that never got fixed.
Unfortunately, that makes a lot of sense. Yeah.
When there are conflicts that exist within a couple, you cannot just hide behind, some people do it with alcohol, some people do it with television, some people do it with phones, but you can't hide behind other distractions to avoid it.
Absolutely.
Because under it are two people who love each other and they're still there.
Yeah. I mean, it took a lot of work to get where you are. Why would you give up on the work? I mean, I understand it to a point because you're lost. You don't know what you don't know about being alone together after all those years, right?
Well, look, our goal, with this book and what we really tried to do was we wanted to call out something that was truthful. Mm-hmm. We wanted to let people know, too, that, we're not immune to it. Nobody is. This affects all couples. There's nothing pathological about the couples we describe in this book. And they're not even, some people will read the vignettes of our book and they'll think, oh my God, that was me, or what client was that? The reality is that these are every client. These are the same things that most human beings go through. And there is a unifying theme to this, in my mind. And so we needed to get this out so that everybody could just start a dialogue about it.
Unifying is a key word, I think, because you're alone with each other, but you don't want to feel alone in that world, right? So if you have the sense that other couples are having similar or the same issues, it's got to be encouraging at some level.
Well, you have to sort of be open in taking the risk. And I know that's something that we do is that we are open with our friends about our life.
Mm-hmm.
And when we give them permission to be open as well, they jump to it.
Yeah.
Because there is something so freeing in being honest and authentic. And somebody saying, okay, so couples sometimes fight, or sometimes, they go through rough patches, or that it's hard to be a parent, or that you struggle in your career. Everything doesn't have to be great all the time.
Right.
And it doesn't mean that you're quitting your job, or you're getting divorced, or that you wish that you weren't a parent. It just means you need somebody else as a sounding board to agree with you and say, sometimes that sucks.
Well, I think what it does is it normalizes, because we're kind of locked in our own relationships without talking to other people and without reaching out and getting resources. And you're locking yourself into a place that if you shared, if you opened up, if you utilize the resources available, you would realize that we're all in that boat.
Yeah.
And it doesn't have to be that way.
Well, and I think too, and you would know better again than I, but I think too, if once they start to verbalize that, I would think there's a little bit of a load being lifted off their shoulders because they're actually verbalizing it instead of stuffing it.
It feels really good to be real.
Right? What a concept.
I also think that there's another thing that we have to consider, which is society has changed.
Yeah.
People are getting married, having kids much later. And so what that has created is that all the big major things in life are happening within 2 decades.
Oh, wow.
Right?
You're right. Yeah.
So that is really tough. And also the idea that we used to be a village. We used to have neighbors and kids used to play outside. And it's awesome if people still have that, but a lot of people don't.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that leaves them alone.
Do you do long-distance counseling? Do you do stuff with webinars or Zoom? Or how can people reach out and benefit from working with you?
We both have digital relationship coaching businesses. We're not allowed to do therapy outside of California.
Makes sense.
But I know that there are people that reach out from other countries and from other states. And in those situations, over a platform like Skype, we can do relationship coaching and really help couples. It's very similar to couples counseling, but just not exactly couples counseling.
Sure.
And it's always a helpful resource for people.
But, people could also reach out and email us and start the process going of getting some assistance in this. It does not have to be like that. And also, look, you have to also consider what it does to your kids to grow up in a home where mom and dad don't seem like they like each other.
Yeah.
Right. And even if there's not overt fighting, the energy is not a happy energy. They don't see mom and dad in love with one another, dancing, light, happy. And that is, that's something that they carry with them.
No question about it. The website is a Los Angeles Therapist, all one word, .com. The book is
Married Roommates.
There it is. And you'll find that on Amazon. The reviews are through the roof. There are tons of reviews on here, so be sure to check it out on Amazon. Be sure to drop them an email to, start putting your toe on the water about being able to communicate and bring some joy back into your life and into your relationships. Boy, Alan, Talia, I can't thank you enough. It's really been a great conversation, and thank you so much, and wish you continued success.
Thank you so much.
Listen to your 20-minute podcast with David Brower on the go. Downloads are available on YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, iTunes, iHeartRadio, Spotify, any podcast app, and on our website at davidbrowervo.com/your20-minute podcast. Until next time, thank you for listening.